The Chase Ink Business Premier Card is a pay-in-full card with flexibility made for business owners who make things happen. Earn a total of 2.5% cash back on every purchase of $5,000 or more. Plus, earn unlimited 2% cash back on every other purchase, giving you unlimited earn potential to invest cash back into your business. Ink Business Premier is part of a suite of credit cards from Chase for Business, designed to meet your needs every step along the way. Learn more at chase.com/business card. Chase for Business. Make more of what's yours. Account subject to credit approval. Restrictions and limitations apply. Cards are issued by JPMorgan Chase Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Running small and medium-sized businesses is hard work. Business owners need to be sure their ads are working just as hard as they do. Amazon streaming TV ads makes your marketing dollar work harder. With Amazon ads, trillions of insights help small and medium businesses reach the right customers that matter. Your ads will show up during the shows the people are actually watching, and measurement tools show you what's working the hardest. Gain the edge with Amazon ads.
Introducing the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio, now with AI-powered PDF spaces. Do more with PDFs than you ever thought possible. Need AI to turn 100 pages of market research into 5 insights with a click? Do that with Acrobat. Need templates for a sales proposal that'll close that deal? Do that with Acrobat. Need an AI specialist to tailor the tone of your market report to sound real smart in real time? Do that with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio. Learn more at adobe.com/do-that-with-Acrobat.
Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, our global look at the top stories in the coming week from our Daybreak anchors all around the world. Straight ahead on the program, a look at how tariffs on lumber and timber could impact the U.S. housing market. I'm Tom Busby in New York.
I'm Caroline Hebke in London. What's in a prize, specifically the Nobel Prize decisions?
I'm Doug Krisner looking at Chinese consumers during Golden Week, plus trouble with some Hong Kong real estate.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 92.9 Boston, DAB Digital Radio London, Sirius XM 121, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and the Bloomberg Business app.
Good day to you. I'm Tom Busby. We begin today's program with a new batch of tariffs announced by President Trump on imports of softwood timber and lumber, as well as levies on kitchen cabinets, vanities, and upholstered wood products brought into the U.S. How will this impact the housing market moving forward? And what about housing prices? For more, we're joined by Drew Redding, Bloomberg Intelligence U.S. home building analyst. Well, Drew, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Home builders, home buyers, now they've already been paying sky-high prices, elevated mortgage rates. They've been paying tariffs on imported kitchen appliances, washers and dryers. And now, October 14th, they'll be paying 10% levies on softwood lumber and timber, 25% on kitchen cabinets, vanities, other pre-assembled. I mean, this is not good, is it?
Yeah, well, certainly, the consumer doesn't need higher costs when it comes to housing, given the affordability constraints that they've been under for the last several years. Just to take a step back on the tariffs, to put it in perspective, the U.S. imports about $13 billion or 7% roughly of the goods used in new residential construction. So at the headline level, it's not necessarily a massive piece, but there are particular areas where tariffs will be felt perhaps more than others. If you look at the top 3 countries that we import from, it's China. That's about 27% of imports. From there, we're talking about things like appliances, lighting, electrical components, hand tools. The second is Mexico. And from there, we're primarily talking about gypsum products. So think drywall. Mexico is about 72% of imports there. And then third, which is really coming to focus now, is Canada, which accounts for 85% of lumber imports. So when you put all this together, the previously announced tariffs, country-specific fentanyl and reciprocal tariffs, along with these newly announced tariffs, we think that the total cost to a builder will be about $10,000 per home, which is a pretty staggering number. Now, we don't think the builders will ultimately absorb all of these costs. I think, they'll probably be spread throughout the supply chain. And when you think about the large public builders, they're really better positioned in this environment, given, their scale. Now, in terms of their ability to pass on to consumers, I think that could be tough. And, you've got prices already coming down for a lot of builders due to affordability. And then they're still having to use an elevated degree of incentives, which is accounted for as a reduction in sales price. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but at the end of the day, the point is that it becomes increasingly expensive to build a home.
And I mean, this could really deter a lot of builders. Like you said, we're not worried about the KB Homes and the Pulte's of the world, but a lot of smaller ones from constructing new homes, at least initially, right?
No, it's a good point. And, while we haven't seen a huge impact on, tariffs to this point, one of the things we have heard, and to your point, really from the smaller private builders, is that there hasn't been a lot of certainty. So they don't know what their costs are going to be. When you don't know what your costs are going to be, it's hard for you to plan out into the future and put new production into the ground. So I do think it is definitely more challenging for the smaller names in the group. One thing that I think that's worth pointing out on the lumber side of this is that prior to this announcement of a 10% tariff on softwood imports, we already had duties on lumber coming in from Canada. You're talking about 45% on Canadian lumber imports, which again is 85% of all the lumber imported into the U.S.
I mean, it sounds like some of these Canadian lumber makers, these manufacturers, could really be struggling now if sales get hurt.
Yeah, it's a great point, and the announcement really came because the administration wanted to open an investigation as to whether or not the lumber trade was a risk to national security. Which they determined that it was. So the question becomes, well, can the U.S. produce enough lumber domestically to meet all the demand? And I think the answer for now is no. And, as I mentioned, we produce about 70% of the lumber utilized in the U.S. And to get that to 100% would really require a lot of time. The National Association of Home Builders estimates, somewhere around 10 years to be able to achieve this. So certainly no small feat.
And not only the industrial resilience, but also Trump said the high-quality jobs that this would create. Would they really be high-quality jobs?
I mean, that remains to be seen. And like I said, it will take a lot of time to add new capacity to the industry. But, there are a lot of jobs along the supply chain in terms of, just not only jobs you're creating at the mills, but logistics and, getting wood to factories, to job sites and things like that. So it would certainly help.
Now let's talk about the other tariffs. And these are big. They're 25% on kitchen vanity, bathroom vanities, kitchen cabinets, that type of thing. We know that Ethan Allen, Lazy Boy source and manufacture a lot of their products in the U.S., but there are big retailers that import a ton of goods. Wayfair, Williams-Sonoma, RH, formerly Restoration Hardware. I mean, they may really be impacted by these tariffs, right?
I think from their perspective, the impact isn't going to be as great as you might expect. But if you think about the individual consumer who is going out and making a single purchase, on a kitchen cabinet or vanity and was looking for a low-cost option, all of a sudden to them, that becomes significantly more expensive. So I think there's a big difference between how, a home improvement retailer can manage the situation versus an individual consumer.
A lot of challenges. Well, our thanks to Drew Redding, Bloomberg Intelligence, U.S. home building analyst. We move next to a turning point for big pharma this past week. Pfizer negotiated a 3-year reprieve on drug import tariffs in exchange for a promise to reduce what it charges Medicaid for some prescription meds, also to price future drugs on par with what it charges other wealthy nations, and to sell certain drugs at discounted prices to the public. Now, how might this impact the pharmaceutical space? What other drug makers are working on their own deals? And what does it mean for consumers? For all that, we're joined by Madison Muller, Bloomberg health reporter. Madison, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Can you kind of detail the finer points of this agreement with the White House? And I'm most curious about Trump RX. It sounds a little like his answer to Obamacare, but...
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. And I think we knew that they were working on something like this. I mean, for the last few months, the administration has been talking about direct-to-consumer websites and platforms. Some drug makers had already started doing that. Eli Lilly, for example, has Lilly Direct. Novo Nordisk has been doing this for some of the really high-demand drugs like GLP-1 weight loss drugs. And so we knew the administration was thinking about doing something like this. And its answer to, one of the biggest priorities in terms of healthcare is lowering drug prices. And this is sort of one of multiple things that the administration thinks could help address that by making a website where drug makers can put their drugs on there and at a steep discount to the list price and have consumers sort of directly buy them from the manufacturers as a way to cut drug prices. But it's an interesting concept, and cash pay might not necessarily be super popular for other medications like it has been for the GLP-1 weight loss drugs.
Is that because so many of those other medications are so expensive?
Exactly. And the insurance landscape for weight loss drugs is quite patchy still. It's very difficult to get insurance coverage. The drugs are expensive. So a lot of people are willing to pay out of pocket for those medications. But in terms of this Pfizer deal, some of the medications that we know that Pfizer will be discounting, like its blood thinner Eliquis, those are usually covered by insurance anyway. So people with insurance will have coverage for that. There wouldn't really be a reason for them to buy it directly from the manufacturer on a website like TrumpRx. And those who don't have insurance, it's probably still going to be pretty expensive for.
Now, some of the drugs that are made by Pfizer, by Lilly, by Johnson & Johnson, all made or mostly made in the U.S. Let's talk about what Trump threatened to impose on branded drugs from outside the U.S., a 100% tariff. Now, that's not going to help a whole lot of consumers, is it?
Right, exactly. I mean, that's one thing that's been sort of in conflict with the administration's efforts to lower drug prices is if there are tariffs on pharmaceutical products that could end up raising drug prices because it will make it a lot more expensive for manufacturers to make these medications. And like you said, all of the big U.S. and international drug makers have manufacturing plants in the U.S. They're building more in the U.S., but the pharmaceutical supply chain is really complex, and they do have some elements of their manufacturing or supply outside of the U.S. Eli Lilly, for example, makes the critical first step in their weight loss and diabetes drugs Mounjaro and Zepbound in Ireland, and then they ship it here, and the rest of the manufacturing process happens here. So tariffs really had huge potential implications for this industry. And what Pfizer has been able to do is negotiate a 3-year reprieve. And it's the assumption that other drug makers are going to try to follow suit with this.
Well, part of Pfizer's deal is they made a $70 billion pledge to expand manufacturing and research and development here. So what is in Pfizer's plans, and what are some of the other U.S. manufacturers doing? Yeah,
so like we said, there are other U.S. manufacturers and international manufacturers that have pledged billions of dollars of investments over the last couple of months. We've seen, I think Lilly was the first one back in February, and since then there's been a lot of other pledges to invest. And so right now, what we're hearing is that these negotiations are sort of on hold for the time being in terms of this 100% tariffs that Trump had threatened. And there was also this ongoing 232 investigation, which is a national security investigation into the pharmaceutical supply chain, sort of as to lay the groundwork for eventual tariffs. So we're hearing right now, as these sort of deals are going on, that all of that is on pause for the time being. And I guess it was a couple months ago, the Trump administration sent letters to 17 drug makers laying out a couple of specific demands, to lower drug prices, look into direct to consumer, offer discounts through Medicaid. And so what we're seeing is Pfizer follow through on some of those demands and make promises that they will discount a lot of their drugs on this TrumpRx website, that they'll discount drugs through Medicaid, which that it sort of actually for the industry was a bit of a relief because they thought it was going to be worse than this. And it could be worse than this if there were sweeping most favored nation policies or tariffs implemented. And so for Pfizer, actually, it was a good thing. And there was some follow through for the rest of the industry that this would be a good thing, too.
Well, a lot to look forward to and a lot of deals likely in the pipeline. Our thanks to Madison Muller, Bloomberg health reporter. And coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, we'll look at the global political implications of the Nobel Prize decisions. I'm Tom Busby, and this is Bloomberg.
You're thoughtful about where your money goes. You've got your core holdings, some recurring crypto buys, maybe even a few strategic options plays on the side. The point is, you're engaged with your investments, and Public gets that. That's why they built an investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can put together a multi-asset portfolio for the long haul. Stocks, bonds, options, crypto, it's all there. Plus an industry-leading 3.8% APY high-yield cash account. Switch to the platform built for those who take investing seriously. Go to public.com and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com. Paid for by Public Investing. All investing involves the risk of loss, including loss of principal. Brokerage services for U.S.-listed registered securities, options and bonds in a self-directed account are offered by Public Investing, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Crypto trading provided by Backed Crypto Solutions, LLC. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
How can you grow your business from idea to industry leader? Bring your vision to life with smart business buying tools and technology from Amazon Business. From fast, free shipping to in-depth buying insights and automated purchase approvals, they deliver everything you need to achieve your goals. It's not easy to stand out from the crowd. Simplify how you stock up to get ahead. Go to amazonbusiness.com for support.
Your next product launch is coming fast. Don't let billing slow you down. Legacy systems can't handle usage-based billing. That means your team is stuck gluing code together, piecing through spreadsheets, and running ad hoc queries just to figure out what to bill. With Metronome, you can roll out new pricing in minutes instead of months, whether it's usage-based, seat-based, or a hybrid model. Visit metronome.com to see how companies like OpenAI and Anthropic launch billing as fast as they launch products. That's metronome.com.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, our global look ahead at the top stories for investors in the coming week. I'm Tom Busby in New York. Up later in our program, a look at the Golden Week holiday in China and what it'll mean for consumer spending. But first, a new batch of recipients for the Nobel Prize, one of the world's most prestigious accolades. Established in the will of Swedish chemist and inventor Alfred Nobel to honor individuals who made outstanding contributions to humankind, the awards have become an emblem of achievement, even capturing the interest of U.S. President Donald Trump. For more, let's go to London and bring in Bloomberg Daybreak Europe anchor Caroline Hepker.
Tom, it's no secret that President Trump has been courting the idea of winning a Nobel Peace Prize for some time. According to Bloomberg opinion columnist Andreas Kluth, it's one of the reasons he's been pushing so hard for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Other political leaders, including the Congolese president, have weighed into the debate, saying Trump will have earned the award if he can end more than 3 decades of conflict between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And of course, previous US presidents have managed to impress the Nobel Committee in the past. Prior winners include Theodore Roosevelt, Jimmy Carter, and most recently Barack Obama in 2009. The current president mentioned the prize during his recent address to the United Nations General Assembly, although he did remain philosophical about his chances of winning.
I didn't think of it at the time because I was too busy working to save millions of lives. That is the saving and stopping of these wars. But later I realized that the United Nations wasn't there for us. They weren't there. I thought of it really after the fact, not during these negotiations, which were not easy. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. The only thing that solves war and wars is action. Now, after ending all of these wars and also earlier negotiating the Abraham Accords, which is a very big thing for which our country received no credit, never receives credit. Everyone says that I should get the Nobel Peace Prize for each one of these achievements. But for me, the real prize will be the sons and daughters who live to grow up with the mothers and fathers, because millions of people are no longer being killed in endless and unglorious wars.
That was Donald Trump speaking there at the UN General Assembly in New York. So just how likely is it that he'll walk away with Nobel recognition? And how important is the upcoming prize giving? It's something I've been discussing with our Nordic managing editor, Kati Pojan-Palo, and Stockholm bureau chief, Charles Daly. Charles, can I start with you firstly? So the Nobels are obviously hugely prestigious. They are known around the world. Just in terms of the history and where we are for this year, tell us a bit about the history of the Nobels and how they've come about.
Yep, sure. I mean, to do that, we have to go back to 1895 and the last will and testament of a Swedish engineer and chemist by the name of Alfred Nobel, who is known really, as well as the Nobel Prizes, he's also known for inventing dynamite, as his claim to fame. In that will, he listed 5 prizes for those who have conferred the greatest benefit to mankind in the preceding year. And there were 5 categories of prizes in the will: physics, chemistry, physiology or medicine, literature, and peace. And they were first awarded in 1901. Some years later, in 1968, however, a prize was added in memory of Alfred Nobel, and that was established by the central bank here in Sweden, which is called the Riksbank. And not surprisingly, that is called now the Economics Prize.
So how important do you think it is then to Swedish people?
I think the fact that a Nobel Prize is seen as, the most prestigious award in the world in its field is really a source of national pride for a country that, let's be honest, is only 10.5 million people on the northern edges of Europe. I think it's worth also noting that Sweden is a nation that looks outward beyond its borders in many respects. So the international attention that these prizes garner is of huge importance to the country. Nobel Day on December 10th, which is the anniversary of Nobel's death, is when the prizes are awarded by the king, and there is a lavish banquet in Stockholm City Hall. And it's probably fair to say that that is the biggest academic and cultural highlight of the year in Sweden.
So deliberations normally do take place in secret. So what do we know about the process for this year?
Yeah, the process for this year is as with other years. So Nobel, in his will, listed the institutions responsible for awarding the prize. For example, the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. And for the Peace Prize, it is a committee of 5 elected by Norway's parliament. Then there is an approved list of nominators, for example, former winners, members of the Swedish academies, or professors or chairpeople affiliated with universities. And they can then put forward a name, and a voting committee then decides on the winner or winners. There can only be 3 winners per prize, is the maximum number of winners per prize. And disclosure about nominations is restricted for 50 years. So a process shrouded in secrecy.
So, Kati, let me turn to you. The history of awarding the Peace Prize by Norway to foreign leaders. It has at times been controversial.
Well, absolutely, it's been controversial. So one thing to know about this prize is you cannot ever give it to a person that has deceased. And so living people tend to, after being awarded, continue their careers and lives. And sometimes they do things that don't really kind of fit in with the spirit of why they were awarded a Peace Prize. One super well-known example is 2009, when Barack Obama was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize just 9 months after becoming US president. And he, of course, went on to take a lot of US troops into Afghanistan.
Yes. And of course, we know that President Trump has been talking about wanting to win the prize for some time. And so again, this perhaps adds some pressure to these awards. When did we first find out about his ambitions?
Trump has been talking about this for almost a decade. He keeps bringing up the fact that Obama was given the prize and says, if he were named Obama, he would have been given this prize in 10 seconds. Trump talks about having brokered peace or helped end 7 wars, but many of these are actually a little bit questionable.
Indeed. In terms of the political implications then, the pressure, I wonder whether that is being felt. And maybe also, we don't know, were the US president to win, what might be the implications and the fallout?
I think the big question is, what if he doesn't win? This is where the main implication is on Norway, really. Very recently, Trump declared that not winning would represent a big insult to our country. He there sort of applied some pressure on the Norwegians. Norwegians are really worried about this. They're bracing for what's happening if Trump doesn't win. Now, if Trump were to win, I think a lot of people would put to question the sort of foundation of the Nobel Peace Prize and what it stands for. But the same question has been raised with the previous winners. Obama himself questions his own victory.
Indeed. But then, of course, the Peace Prize is separate from the Norwegian government. So whilst there might be trepidation, how does that factor into the kind of decision making?
The committee is independent, we know that. And some of the controversial decisions it's taken in the past were precisely because it is independent. The Norwegian government wanted no conflict with China in 2010, and yet the committee went and awarded the Chinese dissident that year.
Yeah. Charles, just coming back to you, in our specific sphere, there's always lots of interest in the prize in economics as well as the other sciences that are awarded, in literature and so on. Again, we don't know very much about those awards, but what do you think might be in the mix here for all of those other, hugely important Nobels?
That's a very difficult question because it really is hard to name names. I mean, the betting odds at the moment are really only available for the peace and literature prizes. The favourites for the literature this year include the Australian fiction writer Gerald Murnane and also the Mexican author Cristina Rivera Garza. In conclusion, it's really hard to sort of say where we think the winners might be. It might be worth noting, though, however, in terms of the science-related awards, prizes are typically shared by multiple scholars, and they often have an affiliation to universities and the respective research departments there. North America and Europe tend to dominate the science-related prizes as well. And I think, one area that's caught a lot of media attention rightly in recent years has been the lack of women representation on the awards. I don't think that necessarily reflects badly on the Nobel Committee per se, but probably is more a reflection of the barriers that women face in working and progressing through the scientific community.
So my thanks there to Bloomberg's Charles Daly and Kati Poyanpalo. We'll have full coverage of the Nobel Prize ceremonies across Bloomberg platforms. I'm Caroline Hepker here in London, and you can catch us every weekday morning for Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, beginning at 6 a.m. in London. That's 1 a.m. on Wall Street. Tom.
Thank you, Caroline. And coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, a look at China's Golden Week holiday and what it could reveal about the strength of the Chinese consumer. I'm Tom Busby, and this is Bloomberg.
You're thoughtful about where your money goes. You've got your core holdings, some recurring crypto buys, maybe even a few strategic options plays on the side. The point is, you're engaged with your investments, and Public gets that. That's why they built an investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can put together a multi-asset portfolio for the long haul. Stocks, bonds, options, crypto, it's all there. Plus an industry-leading 3.8% APY high-yield cash account. Switch to the platform built for those who take investing seriously. Go to public.com and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com. Paid for by Public Investing. All investing involves the risk of loss, including loss of principal. Brokerage services for U.S.-listed registered securities, options, and bonds in a self-directed account are offered by Public Investing, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Crypto trading provided by Backed Crypto Solutions, LLC. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
How can you grow your business from idea to industry leader? Bring your vision to life with smart business buying tools and technology from Amazon Business. From fast, free shipping to in-depth buying insights and automated purchase approvals, they deliver everything you need to achieve your goals. It's not easy to stand out from the crowd. Simplify how you stock up to get ahead. Go to amazonbusiness.com for support.
Your next product launch is coming fast. Don't let billing slow you down. Legacy systems can't handle usage-based billing. That means your team is stuck gluing code together, piecing through spreadsheets, and running ad hoc queries just to figure out what to bill. With Metronome, you can roll out new pricing in minutes instead of months, whether it's usage-based, seat-based, or a hybrid model. Visit metronome.com to see how companies like OpenAI and Anthropic launch billing as fast as they launch products. That's metronome.com.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend, our global look ahead at the top stories for investors in the coming week. I'm Tom Busby in New York. In China, the Golden Week holiday is now underway. It began last Wednesday with National Day and runs through the Mid-Autumn Festival, and the government is hoping Chinese consumers will celebrate. For more, let's get to the host of the Daybreak Asia podcast, Doug Krisner.
Tom, Golden Week is regarded as the most important travel period in China. Authorities are expecting 2.4 billion people to travel during this 8-day break, and needless to say, the holiday represents a major opportunity for more domestic consumption. Joining me now is Bloomberg's Catherine Lim, retail analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. She's on the line from Singapore. Thank you so much for making time to chat with me. Can you give me a sense on the extent to which there is optimism over the outlook for consumer spending this year?
Right. Happy to be here. And, as you've highlighted, we are into the dual holiday period over 8 days. You're going to see celebrations not just for National Day, but also the Mid-Autumn Festival, which is a traditional, event that family and friends gather. So it was very timely seeing how some of the cities are issuing consumption vouchers out to their consumers so that you could stimulate a little bit more of that spending, which admittedly had put on a drag in August because there was a calendar shift in that very important Mid-Autumn Festival that I've just talked about, whereby family and friends gather.
I'm wondering about sentiment right now, and maybe we can tie it to the equity markets in China, which have been performing very well. Is that expected to provide some positivity to sentiment, do you think?
Well, definitely. I guess, when you look at asset and asset value creation, it's either property, if not, the equity market. And I think in the last 2 to 3 years, both of these market hasn't been, in the best of shape. In year to date, equity market, the rally definitely brings relief and, does help stimulate that sentiment, if you ask me.
So when I think of destinations in China, one of the things that comes to mind is Macau and the casinos. Are people feeling reasonably optimistic about casino business this year and traffic at the big places?
Well, we've also seen traffic, and I would say, the table rolls, etc., picking up in terms of the crowd. So that is a good sign. On the other hand, what I'll say is that, a lot of the spenders, whether you're gamblers or just shoppers per se, there is more discerning spending that we have observed. So I'm not sure whether we should be putting that much bet on Macau. Similarly, even Hong Kong per se, I would say that, after the recent typhoon hits, and we are anticipating another typhoon hitting, the south over the next 10 days, etc., it may not actually be, the biggest thing for these two autonomous regions. Within the country itself, I'm a little more optimistic about domestic tourism within the country, as more of the shoppers or consumers take a break out into, the suburban regions, and there are more camping sites as well as, areas that consumers can take a break from the city.
So you mentioned a moment ago that domestic governments in China are handing out vouchers and coupons and things to kind of stimulate domestic consumption. Give me a sense of how they are applied and whether we should be looking for kind of high frequency data among retailers, whether it's more a story about restaurants, whether it's a story about air travel.
Right. For restaurants, definitely, because, we are still seeing lots of promotions ongoing for platforms like Alibaba, Meituan, and JD.com when it comes to food delivery and quick commerce. You would have heard of the competition that was ongoing among these three companies since the middle of this year itself. And it continues to actually intensify as we go into the holiday season. Again, all the gatherings that's going on. Now, that will likely come through and on a more intensified level into October and November. Doug, let's not forget that we are now very close to the start of the Singles' Day shopping festival, which is essentially a near 2-month long shopping festival, and it will kickstart sometime on the 7th of October, which is essentially next week itself. Once the consumers returns from the holidays, they may actually be shopping more online. So I would say that going back to your earlier point about consumption vouchers, it's definitely good to actually have an extra voucher on hand to spend. But let's look at the discretionary side of things itself. Those spending may actually come through in October and November, particularly during the Singles' Day promotions.
Catherine, we'll leave it there. Thank you so very much. Bloomberg's Catherine Lim, retail analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. Catherine joining us from Singapore. So we go from the Chinese consumer to the challenges facing some of the most wealthy families in Hong Kong. Joining me now is Bloomberg Shirley Zhao. Shirley and her team have been reporting on how trouble in several high-profile real estate projects is creating financial risk for some very wealthy families in China. Shirley, thank you for making time to chat with me. Before we get to specific examples, can you help me understand the state of the Hong Kong real estate market right now?
So Hong Kong's property market has been in a crisis since COVID. It's mainly to do with the rising interest rate globally and the slowing economy in China. A lot of developers borrowed a lot of money before COVID and before, Hong Kong sort of plunged into years of political turmoil and the COVID isolation around the time of 2017 and 2018. That was when, a lot of developers and a lot of smaller businesses borrowed a lot of money and invested heavily into the real estate sector. But then, during COVID, people stopped traveling and the retail businesses really did very badly. And after COVID, China's economy started to slow down, and that really put a lot of pressure on developers and the businesses that sort of went all in the real estate sector. Today, real estate prices, we have data showing that it's about 30% down from the pre-COVID level.
So can you give me an example of how a wealthy family in Hong Kong made a big bet on a major real estate project only to see that project underperform in a major way, miss expectations wildly?
New World is one of the most high-profile examples of this. They borrowed a lot of money to invest in developing several major projects, including a huge shopping mall and hotel complex near Hong Kong's famous Victoria Harbour, and mega shopping mall near Hong Kong's International Airport, as well as a sports park near Hong Kong's Old Airport. And they did that in 2017 and 2018, and they spent a lot of money fueled by debt. And then in 2019, Hong Kong started to enter this prolonged period of political turmoil and COVID isolation. And after COVID, Hong Kong's economy didn't rebound, it slowed down. So a lot of these projects didn't really have time to materialize. They didn't have the chance to generate cash for New World to pay off their debt. And that's why New World's debt problem really emerged over the past 2 years, and it was pushed to the brink of default, and it had to line up Hong Kong's biggest ever refinancing with dozens of banks, and it pulled it off, but then banks started to feel that they had too much exposure on New World.
One of the things that I think is very interesting here in terms of context is the notion of family empires being involved here. It's not just a company. It's almost like a dynasty, isn't it? And you mentioned in your piece this issue, which I found very interesting, the notion of self-correcting. So when a family makes a mistake, it's the dynamics of the family sometimes that can make the correcting process even more challenging, right?
Right, yeah. So the issue with a lot of family-owned businesses is that a lot of the decision-making is sometimes down to the personal whim of family members. Even though they hired professional managers to run their companies, the final decision-making will be swayed by the will of family members. And that's making management more difficult and less professional. And in New World's case, because they expanded so aggressively in 2017 and 2018, and the timing was really bad. So now their debt problem really showed, and that's really raising an alarm bell for a lot of other family-owned businesses in Hong Kong and around the world as well.
So we know on the mainland, the government's been very concerned about problems with the property market. How is the local government in Hong Kong viewing this situation right now? Are people very concerned?
People are concerned, and that was why you would see reports about Hong Kong's monetary authority actually following up on New World's refinancing effort. There were reports about Hong Kong monetary authority calling banks up to check on the status on their refinancing arrangement with New World. And banks felt that they didn't want to be the one that make New World default and trigger the rippling effect on Hong Kong's economy. So there is this saying that New World is too big to fail. And that really showed during its refinancing effort with the banks and with the involvement of Hong Kong's monetary authorities.
When I think about the residential market in Hong Kong, I know that for years there have been challenges trying to add to new supplies, so many restrictions on developing land. And yet here we have a situation where commercial developers don't seem to have any problems. Can you imagine a world where things get turned, and so that perhaps in a way these companies begin to focus their energy maybe more on residential property than on commercial property?
That's exactly what New World is doing right now. So now they are refocusing on selling and building more residential projects. And from selling apartments, that will generate money for them to pay down debt. So that's their main strategy right now.
Shirley, we'll leave it there. Thank you so very much. Bloomberg Shirley Zhao in Hong Kong. And I'm Doug Krisner. Catch us weekdays for the Daybreak Asia podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcast. Tom?
Thanks, Doug. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Daybreak Weekend. Join us again Monday morning at 5 a.m. Wall Street time for the latest on markets overseas and the news you need to start your day. I'm Tom Busby. Stay with us. Top stories and global business headlines are coming up right now.
How can you free your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams. Smart business buying tools enable buyers to find and purchase items fast so they can focus on strategy and growth. It's time to free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com. Hiscox Small Business Insurance knows there is no business like your business. Across America, over 600,000 small businesses, from accountants and architects to photographers and yoga instructors, look to Hiscox Insurance for protection. Find flexible coverage that adapts to the needs of your small business with a fast, easy online quote at hiscox.com. That's HISCOX.com. There's no business like small business. Hiscox Small Business Insurance.
Promotional products aren't just giveaways, they're strategic brand tools. That's why so many businesses turn to 4imprint. With thousands of customizable options from premium apparel, drinkware, tech, totes, and more, 4imprint offers the variety to fit your goals and budget. Many items come with no setup charge to help you maximize value even more. With expert support, fast turnaround, and a 360-degree guarantee, you can be 4imprint certain your order will be done right on time. Explore more at 4imprint.com.
4imprint.